Hi ho, ladies and gentlemen. Harry Brailsford here from SMB Nation. It is spring quarter, MSP Tech Talk, our academic series. I like to say, because I was talking to my son, Harry Jr., who is now doing online learning because of the pandemic at Cal Poly. And I like to say that we were doing online learning before it was fashionable. Now everybody's doing it. A lot of tales from the trenches to tell another day about what the college kid experience is, what the event experience is. I've talked to one of our guests today about that in a recent interview about the online event experience. But again, for another day, we are talking about the remote work scenario, the absolute hottest opportunity in IT today, I feel, and I believe it's going to continue longer than we think, different paradigm. And we're talking security. Let's get started. So let me get my clicker. And we have speakers. Again, my name is Harry Brailsford. We'll be joined later by Josh Weiss. We have Phelim Rowe and Ryan Becker. Ryan. Phelim, go ahead and introduce yourself to our SMB Nation audience, please.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Harry. Great to be here. My name is Phelim Rowe. I run a series of security conferences in the States, UK, Netherlands, Germany, and sometimes around the world. We combine an end user, MSS, and MSP audience. So I am effectively an analyst or a bystander, as it were, but I pose the questions to our MSP and MSS audience about questions such as this, such as remote working, and that's why I'm here to contribute what I have observed. I've met Harry in one of the cyber events in Miami, so I'm very pleased to be here, and I hope I can add something from all the different events and conversations I've had.
All righty, thank you. And you were doing events in several U.S. cities. Hope those can come back for you soon. So there is a chance for people to meet you in Phoenix, Denver, Dallas. I believe there were a handful of cities you visited. Speaking of Dallas, go ahead, Phelim. Did I get it right?
Oh yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. Well, speaking of Dallas, Texas, we go to the drone master, Ryan Becker. I had the chance to meet up with Ryan. It's amazing. We met in live. We've known each other, but we met live in early March. Went to the Channel Pro event in the Dallas area. Did some droning, and that was right before the world changed, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm good. That was the last fun thing I think I did out in public before Corona came to town. So yep. It was a blast.
So, yeah, well, tell us about your business.
I'm Ryan Becker from Frisco, Texas, and I own and operate High Tech Computing. And I work with small and mid-sized businesses in IT consulting, and I enjoy it a lot. And I like technology a lot. And like Barry said, I've gotten into the world of drones and starting to look and see how we can incorporate some of that into what we do.
Yeah, and take a second to share. I believe you've also been in the home computing market for some time, and now you're back in fashion.
Yeah, I've been working with a lot of home clients lately as well. You know, not only their own compute world, but in getting them set up to work remotely from their corporations at home, as well as my own clients moving from their own offices to home to work remotely. So yeah, it's a big deal in the remote work world right now, and it's important.
Yeah, and I applaud that you got in early and you have the experience, and that's why we have you as a guest. Let's get going. Let's talk about cyber training for remote workers. As I visited with the panel the other day, and we kind of came up with the final agenda. Number one, one of the number one conversations was cybersecurity training for remote workers. And gentlemen, let's hit it head on. I've worked with a gentleman out of Tampa named Stu, who had Sunbelt Software and has got on to start up a cybersecurity training organization that's done quite well over the past few years. And, the state of Alaska uses them, and they're trained not to open suspicious links on emails and that kind of thing. Phil, what are you hearing about cybersecurity training at that level, the phishing attacks and so on, and maybe vis-a-vis your own opinion about the importance now that we have remote workers who don't have the IT guy down the hallway?
Is that for me? Is that for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm really pleased that you mentioned Stu, because his company is a very big supporter of my work. Let me know if I'm allowed to mention them.
No, please do. I was making a side note. I actually forgot the name of his new company. I followed him. What is this company?
KnowBe4. KnowBe4 do excellent phishing simulations for your employees, and they do training exercises to raise awareness of innovative things. And one of the big mantras that they use: if it elicits emotion, stop. It makes you extra greedy because some prince from somewhere has offered you some money. Has it made you extra worried because it's talking about your tax return around about the tax deadline, or perhaps your stimulus? If it elicits emotion, stop, take a breather. But that training is really key. And of course, there's an ethical consideration. Do you want to, red team, or do you want to spoof your own workforce? And then how do you communicate that message? Who has failed it and who has not, and how do they feel about you keeping tabs on them? It's a big question. But one of the bigger questions I think about remote, security and workforce training. Imagine if I took you both, Ryan and Harry, and I put you through a kidnap and ransom training exercise. You would pretty quickly take that seriously, and you would pretty quickly attempt to avoid physical threats to your person, right?
Yep.
But now I'm trying to tell you, be careful about the company's information. It doesn't have the same ring to it, and so being able to communicate how your own safety or your own data is at risk when you put the company's data at risk, that's also key, because otherwise people will find it difficult to take it seriously.
Yeah, I was impressed with how serious a couple friends. I spent a number of years in Alaska, still have good friends, and I was impressed at how seriously they were taking it at obviously the enterprise level. But here's the deal. All of those friends back home, they're now working at home. Okay.
And that's something that I would like to address myself.
Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, when we're working at home with these corporately owned devices, smartphones, tablets, computers, desktops, whatever they are now attached to our home networks. Now we have an outside security problem. And there are devices that we can attach to our networks. I have one, the one that I use is called Trend Micro Home Network Security. All traffic goes in and out of this box after it goes in or out of the gateway. And it filters it, and it works really well. And you should see it trying to attack my servers. People trying to attack my servers, I love looking at those reports. It just snatches them. So it adds a nice layer of security to the network level in a home network, as well as giving parental controls and things like that. But I like that device on my network, and my clients have things like that on their network using their remote devices. Me as an IT guy, I probably feel better about that.
Yeah, and Ryan, are you having with your clients or your lovely partner who I got to meet her when I was in Dallas, and she's at the enterprise level, and that's actually a really good example. I won't name the company, but they have sent a lot of people to become remote workers. Is cyber training in the mix for her company and your clientele? Cybersecurity training,
especially. Yeah, for the company that Charlotte works at, yeah, they are very heavy into training. You know, at my level, where my clients are 3 to 10, 15 people, you know, there's no formal training other than I talk to them.
Yeah.
Put the word on the street, but there could be.
And we're joined by Josh Weiss. Hey, Josh, introduce yourself. And then in particular, this was an exciting topic for you, cybersecurity training for remote workers. So introduce yourself and then give us your 2 cents.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Hey guys, I'm Josh Weiss, LA Creative Technologies. I had about 4 appointments at 12 p.m. So here I am now. Yeah, it's interesting, Ryan, what you just said. We've done something for our clients who, I mean, our biggest client is 800, but I would say our sweet spot is 15 to 20. And we have a deck that we go through. It's an employee cybersecurity awareness deck. And we've essentially taken the concept of what your partner is doing for enterprise, and we deliver cybersecurity trainings to these small companies of 8, 10, 15, 20 people. And I've given that same presentation to our largest client, which is an 800-person real estate company. And they, of course, really benefited from that and enjoyed that. But what I've found is that doing this with these small companies, it does a lot. It really positions you as an expert for those companies. Like, we all know that we offer all these great solutions to our clients for security, but we also all know that, employees are a major weak link. And so we've gotten a lot of value out of this. When onboarding a new client, we started doing this like mid last year. And so all the clients that we've onboarded since then, they get this really great hit right at the front end of us coming in as that security authority, right? So their management is saying, wow, we weren't covering this stuff. We weren't training our people on this. Yeah. And so what we do is we do a phishing test. We see how many people clicked. We include not their names, but we include those percentage results in the training, right? So like, okay, guys, we just told you all this stuff. How do you think you're doing? Okay, cool. Well, it's usually 10%, 8%, 14%. That's the numbers that we see. I know people say that at the enterprise, the number is more like 30, but we're seeing 10%. Like when I did that 800-person real estate company, we got the IT director, we got the legal counsel. We're getting big people. And so if you guys come up with a training that really pertains to your small clients, it's a great way to be perceived as an authority, but also you make a big difference, right? The amount of people asking, should I click on this, went up exponentially after those trainings. So we love that. We're actually doing a webinar on Thursday, which is based on that same deck, right? Because this works for marketing too. You can have a 30-minute marketing presentation that you can do for a chamber of commerce, that you can do for, like we did one for the architecture industry. We work for a couple architects. I gave a 30-minute, really, really fast wham bam kind of, it's a presentation. These are the risks, and these are some sort of tangible things you could do now to improve your security. And it gets a lot of people paying attention. So, for everyone who's watching right now, it's a great thing that you can do for even small businesses.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to add,
I've told some of my clients that the users are the biggest danger to their compute world.
Yeah. Well, there's a great slide that I have in my deck. It's like, I think it's from last year from FBI.gov on the official FBI.gov ransomware page. It says, how do you prevent ransomware? And the very first thing on that page is employee security awareness training.
It's critical. It really is.
So,
yeah, but I think with all of this,
well,
trying to comply, and if you're really focused on compliance, and all these employees have signed a piece of paper and proven that they have done the training, then what are you going to do? Take each one to court for each breach? You've got to make it relevant to them and translate it into how it's going to hurt them, rather than you're going to lose your job. Because you're not going to sue every employee because of clicking some funny link. I think that's key. Otherwise, it becomes your service level agreement, tick. Obviously, everything's different, but that's what I think we should avoid.
Yeah. Well, for us, I don't work in any compliant industries. And so what we're really doing, it's not so much about who's going to get sued or what's going to happen. It's about what is the impact going to be on your company? How are you going to look? How is this going to impact your reputation, your standing in the company? How is this going to hurt your company? right? Because even without compliance, like this stuff is a big deal. And so, I think I don't know how to speak to the compliance need because we work in pretty weird industries, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
I worked with a dentist once that had some issues with, not in terms of compliance, but I had to give him the lecture of what would it do to your practice if you lost your entire client and records database, your EMR?
Yeah.
He said, I wouldn't know who owes me money. I wouldn't know who my customers are. I don't know who I am. So it became real important. So, whether he's going to lose data because of a hard disk failure or because his database got locked up by ransomware, same end effect.
Yes.
It needs to be protected.
Yeah.
And hey, Jenny, feel free to ask some of those questions that I see flying by, folks. Yes, Paul, it was Know Before, Stu down at Know Before. Shout out to Stu. Stu helped launch my career in the late 90s when I did my first books, and he used to put it in as the book mention and his weekly newsletter, Win 2K News. And guys, I'd sell like 150 copies. I mean, this dude drove traffic. But before we get too far away on the training, I want to give you a reference. Probably the best book I did in 03, How to Be an SMB Consultant or SMB Consulting Best Practices. And there's a section in chapter 12 that I'll just tell you what it is. But I wrote back then, so what, 17 years ago, my calculation was done properly. And this was back in the billable hour days, not recurring revenue days, but you could add up to 10% additional revenue by providing training services. Now, this was more for Outlook and Office and that kind of thing, being a trainer, but it is a revenue opportunity. Gentlemen, if you want to speak to that before we move on to the next topic, do you price training incrementally different? I think, Ryan, you do some billable hour work, and Josh, I'm going to say you're probably more MSP under contract. Ryan, go.
Well, the kind of training that I do isn't necessarily formal training. There's a lot of how-tos and hand-holding in what I do. I don't have any formal training material set up, but I'm good. I'm pretty good at showing people how to do things, I guess, but nothing formal.
Josh,
for
go
me,
ahead, Josh.
For me, I mean, the thing that I mentioned, that's included with all of our contracts. It's something that I would probably charge like $2,500 for. I created a fixed fee project for doing a phishing test, getting the results, going in, preparing a customized training deck for that company, giving the training, and then doing a second phishing test to show the results afterwards. That's like, I think that's worth $2,500.
Yeah.
I think I would great formula for training. I have seen very unscrupulous methods of training where consultants have one LMS platform. They go into an organization, they get them to tell them everything they need to know, and then they put the company's own content on their LMS platform, and then they sell back the training that the company's given to the same company. So I know that's the extreme angle.
Yeah, I can't resist the joke. Back when I was a fairly active Microsoft vendor in the SBS days, it's not even a joke, it's real, but Microsoft is so big that consultants would sell Microsoft's research back to Microsoft. I never did that. I'm ethical. I never did it. Hey, Phelim, next topic is one you suggested, SaaS hardening and securing devices. Go, sir.
Yeah, so I did an interview with one of my speakers who runs, a particular, facet of this industry. And he said, SaaS hardening is really something simple people can do where, let's say that Zoom issue, everyone freaked out because people didn't put a password on their Zoom meetings and people Zoom bombed them. It was rectified by putting a password on the meeting. People discovered recorded Zoom conversations on YouTube that people had uploaded. That's hardly someone penetrating Zoom's own, cloud servers. I use the Zoom example because it's very current, but there's lots of examples where we can tweak things. Like, let's imagine your customers are at home, working from home, working on a WordPress site. There's certain passwords and certain CSR files that they can put in. Public key they can hide, private key they can hide. Just little things they can do to harden SaaS, because it's all there to be done. That make the attacker's life a bit harder. And I think perhaps it's overlooked, or perhaps you think that your staff members, not capable. Maybe changing their Wi-Fi router password. That's IaaS. Well, it's sort of SaaS hardening, isn't it? Just little tweaks. That's what I was going on about.
Yeah. And I can add on to that.
Go ahead.
Which is that we've been taking, I read some stuff about the MSP industry since COVID came that says that a lot of people are in the same boat that my company is in, which is that once the initial onslaught of remote work tickets went away, we're actually, ticket volume is down across the board. This is at least what's going on for us. So I have a guy who works for us. He's a contractor with Continuum. So he's actually in Mumbai. And so he's been working on increasing our Microsoft 365 secure score, right? So we've been working on enabling a user risk policy, sign-in risk policy. We've been using on just cleaning up, if you can just get your own internal MSP's Office 365 secure score as high as possible, not only are you securing your environment, but now your engineers can go do that for all the rest of your clients, and you can sell that. You can do that for free. But I mean, what you're saying is exactly that. Like SaaS hardening, it takes you a day of labor, and it's now much harder to go ahead and get into your tenant. How are the MSPs getting hacked? They're getting hacked because people are hacking their RMMs, and they're hacking their tenants.
And Josh, I like your example, eating your own dog food. It's why I will never eat at a restaurant that has a skinny chef, okay? So with that said, final thoughts on that topic before we get into some other interesting, less technical conversations, but very interesting nonetheless. The topic is SaaS hardening, and securing devices. Jenny, shout out if you're seeing any comments you want to share. Folks, be sure to use the questions feature to ask your questions. We're here to give you free consulting, basically. And one other thing is, don't forget Thursday at noon Pacific, we're talking devices. And I think you're really going to like the angle we take on that. Speaking of which, we're talking now about securing devices. So the Midpoint.
We do have one comment question. Says, as we have these discussions on the virus and lockdown, shelter-in-place regulations, I think we have two topics, your internal company and client support. I hope as we review strategy, we distinguish the difference.
Phelim, you should be back. Go ahead, Phelim.
That wasn't me.
Oh,
I mean, I started for a second just to say, I mean, that was my point in my comment is I'm looking for how, since our infrastructure is pretty similar to our clients, right? I mean, first off, for any of the MSPs, I would say last year, what we did is we went through every part of our MSP stack, right? And, for anyone listening who hasn't done this, for every single MSP tool you have, turn on two-factor, and then turn on two-factor again, and then turn on two-factor, right? I mean, that's across the board. Turn on two-factor. If you haven't done this yet, go through every shared password you have, shared account you have, right? Split out your accounts. I know all the major RMM vendors have great checklists for this stuff. Like you have to go in and just with passwords and MFA. If you haven't done that for your MSP stack, that is like emergency basis, right? And then just go through the tools, Office 365, like I said, right? Do it internally and then share it with your clients. Because if for no other reason, then you're going to cause issues and you're going to break stuff. So you might as well do it on your own environment first. But Phelan, since you introduced this topic, do you want to speak to that too?
What the securing or getting to your stuff?
I mean, they just said that. I mean, the question was like, you know, what's the internal strategy versus the external client-facing strategy?
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, so imagine you're a hacker. Well, the popular press liked to popularize the exploit against one MSP, because when you crack one MSP, suddenly you've got loads of juicy accounts. Now, it shouldn't have been possible, and then more people have actually done it, either because they cripple an MSP and then you have loss of access for your clients, or they truly do go undetected and they truly do get into all of your clients. So before, you know, Jay McBain, I think, loves to say something like the reports of the demise of the MSP, you know, are grossly overestimated or whatever. That 50-mile sweet spot that the MSP can go and serve seems to really keep their customer base strong. And yes, sure, people are going to Amazon AWS and people are going to the cloud. It's true, but having that relationship and that trust is really key. So that's why you don't just want to bundle expensive solutions that then your customer says, hey, why are you bundling this? I don't have the money for it. You need to put it on your own devices and so on. So there's an internal security strategy. You need to employ an external. Of course, now you've got all your you know, SOC analysts and, you know, tier 1, tier 2 analysts. Maybe some are automated, but a lot of them are at home. Now you have to think about their home. I asked a question at our Phoenix forum we did last Thursday, obviously not physically, virtually. What do you want? Do you want threat intelligence into every endpoint, which is every employee's home? And I think everyone went, yeah, no. They wanted to say yes, but they said no. I suppose there's a problem with non-hierarchical networks, because if everyone in an MSP operated in a hierarchical, you know, military network with network-centric warfare or something, then you could say absolutely the dude at the top, we're going to check out his endpoint, you know, big time, because he has the keys to the kingdom. MSPs don't work that way. An IT administrator, sure, but you know, the networks are not hierarchical in that sense. So you know, the debate is still there. How do you secure MSPs internally, especially when everyone is, you know, working from home? And then, you know, you send out your workforce to go and fix the problem. Perhaps during COVID, they then die. Well, that's not, you know, that's another issue, but we'll get onto that. That's where I was going with it.
All right. Let's move on. So next up, we have securing devices and Midpoint handoffs. And I think, Ryan, I think you brought this up in our planning session. You made it sound like meeting up with an Uber driver in an empty parking lot to score some bootleg whiskey or something.
You'd think all it was, hand off a laptop so I can reload it for somebody and then do the same in reverse. We were looking around and
it's certainly a weird time for people who had a bunch of rules that just got thrown out the window. And I mean, that's why SaaS hardening and this next topic of securing devices is so important.
Very important.
Yeah, Josh, go ahead. So again, in our planning session, you were talking about rules for on-site engagement for your techs to stay safe. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my company, there's 5 of us. There's 1 person who is doing some on-sites. I have an immunocompromised girlfriend, so I'm off limits. But I got an engineer who, you know, we've had to push back. Like, I have a low voltage guy who thinks that this is a invented virus. And I told him, well, if you're going to work for me, you're going to wear a mask, period. And he said, okay. You know, we almost got in a fight and I squashed it and I said, we're not having this conversation. But yeah, that's been the rules. It's like, I've told clients who wanted to have large on-site meetings, I said, you're going to split this meeting in half. you can have some vendors come on Tuesday and some vendors come on Thursday. Right? So like we've really had to push back against that. Like there is a political divide in this country, which has become a health divide and which has become a safety divide. And I just tell people like, these are the rules. If you want someone to come, like there's going to be one person there and he's going to stand far away and he's going to wear a mask. And so it's been really interesting to actually have to bring politics into work a little more now, because some people don't believe that we're having a deadly outbreak of a virus. And some people think that,
Hey,
you know, some people think that fear is the virus. So we're in trouble. And, you know, but it's worked out for me because my tech is happy as hell to get out of his house. And to do condoned work.
Over mid-morning coffee, I kicked over to cable news. I'm trying to minimize that, but I did it because, Josh, it's funny you said the word politics and so on, but the Senate hearing with the leading doctors, you know, at the federal level, blah, 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 but that was all remote today except for a handful of senators in person. And so when you were talking about this, it made me think of that. But man, I turned on the TV. I just wanted to see history, right? And I'll leave it at that. But it was absolutely fascinating to see was it Dr. Fauci was in his home office and so on.
In quarantine.
Yeah. The world has really changed. Let us move on, and Jenny, interject anytime with additional questions. Folks, be sure to use the question feature to ask any question. I want to move on, and then we have a couple more talking points on the next slide. But Phelim, you and I have talked extensively in some YouTube interviews about MSS versus MSP versus MSSP. And I realize, you know, this is a little bit of an outlier topic, but give me 2 minutes on the basic definitions, please, sir.
Okay, well, people might know the definitions, but people might not know how amusing or how much the end user doesn't care about this a certain beef is. If you're an MSP, you might be, sadly, and you know, maybe for your benefit, unaware that the MSS community, Managed Security Service, looks down on you, and that's putting it politely. The people who create an MSP come from one angle, right? It's a labor of love, or it's a business, or it's something that you've personally created, and it's grown. It's you know, customer relations. It's building something, you know, for yourself often, right? And an MSS, it comes from a position of high cyber, you know, authority, of, you know, great standing. People that work in a managed security service are you know, dedicated to cyber causes. They're highly gifted individuals, and which is why if you're SMB, you can't really afford an MSS because it's populated by really well paid, supposedly gifted people, right? Who knows, right? But what's interesting is that some MSS can become second tier suppliers to MSPs. And some MSPs can bundle the services of an MSS, who will give you a second tier option. Of course, you know, both parties hate the term military grade. When you say military grade, it automatically means you don't know what you're talking about. But this beef is interesting because the end customer doesn't care. The end customer doesn't care about all of this. What's interesting is, you know, MSPs go to a whole set of conferences that the MSS community don't even know exists. They don't know IT Nation exists, right? They don't know what channel means, and they work in the channel. That's really weird, because they bundle their own solutions. Anyway, so we often joke about this because there are MSPs that want to, instead of just bundle a Barracuda solution, they want to see themselves as an MSS. And then you get the MSS community getting angry because they say, how could you possibly become an MSS? That is not what you are. your used car salesman who turned their hand to IT, and they get really nasty. They get really nasty. At the MSS London in September, a big MSS, one of the big ones in the world, came to me and said, "I like the conferences you're putting on, but would you do me a favor next time? Would you not invite any MSPs?" I said, "Why?" "They don't know what they're talking about." Anyway, so this is why Harry and I bring it up, because it's funny and obviously puerile, right? We need to break down the barriers and accept, why doesn't an MSP use some of the most expensive security offerings known to man? I wonder, is it because people can't afford it, and maybe because a one-man band it doesn't need it? So that's where we go with those conversations, and as I say, the end user doesn't really care about the thing at all.
And what I would add on top of that, because I went through this journey, I would say, over the last 2 years, where before that I would include security in an MSP contract, and I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. It was like, okay, you have a firewall, I can call this security, because nothing ever happens, right? Security by obscurity. And I think to the credit of Continuum and IT Nation and the various vendors who wanted to sell their stuff really badly, but also, I think do have some genuine care. They did a lot of education to start off. And, I would say for me personally, over the last 2 years, this has become a pretty high priority thing to learn this stuff. But it's hard because every one of these vendors now wants to sell you, if you buy this recurring SaaS bundle from me, you're an MSSP and you have no freaking context, right? And so I think you've got this really difficult position where on the one hand, the vendors have a lot of good education if you really, really dig in, and if you do your own research, and if you study, and if you put in the time. But on the other side of the coin, they need to sell their stuff. And so they're going to say, if you buy my stuff, you're automatically an MSSP. Like me personally, I think we're actually pretty smart, but I would never call myself an MSSP, right?
But that's very flattering, isn't it? They know flattery will get them everywhere. They come in and they go, "Hey, you've got a really neat outfit here. Yeah, I think you're an MSS. Yeah."
No, it's so bad. Whereas what you need is people like us who actually are pretty good at it, but say, "Hey, we defer to the experts," right? I can teach your employees, I can provide the right solutions, we can do all this great stuff, but nonetheless, we are partnering with people who are much smarter than us to pull this off.
Yeah, my clients would laugh me out of the room. My clients would laugh me out of the room if I tried to bring up MSS solutions to them.
Yeah, man, dear one-man band, you need a 24/7 managed SOC with a tier million analyst. They're in the tier million analyst, but and also, if you look at how much money is going through some of these MSS SLAs, it's so much more than the world of MSP. If you look at some of the salespeople that the software that bundles into them, they are like suited and booted. They give the impression that they've just come in on their own private jets to bundle some SaaS for you. Obviously, it's not true, but yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and there's a lot of hucksterism going on.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll close this part of the conversation, Phelan, a point you mentioned about the MSS entities looking down on the MSP entities. It reminds me of an analogy that was real, and this kind of goes back, it's still around today, but it was really bad 10, 15 years ago, of voice and data. And I'm a publishing partner with Doug Green over at Telecom Reseller News, so we team up on things, and he keeps me honest about the voice community. And he said, probably 12 some odd years ago, he sat me down and said, the data people, computer guys, make my people feel stupid, and we don't like it, because you walk into a room and you're almighty lords of the server, and you have this attitude and you make sales agents and telecom workers, you make them feel stupid, and we don't like it, and you need to stop it now. It was delivered in good cheer, but it was an interesting conversation, and I have seen it. You know, I understand the different communities. Let's move on. So, folks, we're now talking about infrastructure trends. Quickly, thin clients, VPN and BYOD. In particular, I want to key in, and this is getting more off into a device conversation, but let's in particular talk about VPN connectivity. And Ryan, you shared an example from the enterprise level where when the remote work surge hit, internal IT departments were overwhelmed with VPN requests, and then you updated me that the enterprises are now automating or scripting that. Yeah. To the extent you can, why don't you tell that story?
Well, in Charlotte, she gets to play with all the big toys. I don't get to play with anything cool. But yeah, sure, her team ended up doing an automation where the employees could go to a website and request VPN access, and based on their employee ID number, what groups are already in, they're in it. So they didn't have thousands of requests like they would have to the help desk. So that was a good way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Chance, any the other two gentlemen, any other thoughts on the VPN topic in particular as a way to secure traffic and so on?
I have one thought, one anecdote, because I'm all about the anecdotes. As you know, as I mentioned, I organize events, right? And I bring communities together. I'm not on the front lines. I just hear it. So in Dubai, where I used to live, right? And in some of these countries where VPNs are illegal and where voice over IP phones are illegal, they've suddenly, for the pandemic, they've suddenly reduced the illegality, and I think that is an interesting trend. That even in the last stalwarts of restricting VPN usage, they've allowed it for working from home. So I think that's a strong signal that VPN is going to have to be accommodated in your local exchange. We're going to need much more bandwidth to tunnel direct from each person's home now they're working from home. It's my little anecdote, but I thought I'd add it.
Yep. And I'll add an anecdote too, since we're anecdote people, and this is a direct frontline observation. So I have a client, they're an architecture firm, 20 people. They get these, $3,500 Dell Beast workstations that their designers use. They're about a year into their lease cycle on a bunch of these machines. And it's really interesting because they have a new employee starting next week. And they were like, well, so we need a quote. Get us a new Dell Beast so that we can put it on a desk in an empty office and then have someone connect with a VPN to that office. And it's just like, wow, if we didn't have all these leases, we could just move you into Azure, get some super spec'd out high GPU machines and put you in the cloud. But you guys are paying all this lease money for these brand new machines. We can't really move you into the Microsoft cloud right now, which is going to cost you at least as much as your monthly lease payment, right? And so I think there's a lot of people in these really interesting infrastructural conversations right now about, what do I do? Like, I feel bad selling you this machine if we might not go back to the office for a year, but I feel bad selling you a bunch of consulting that you're now going to have to pay double to use this cloud solution. I mean, I just think because no one could plan for this, it's really, we're in a very interesting time of infrastructure trends and VPN and BYOD. And I think in 6 months, if everything is the exact same in 6 months, I think the answers to these questions are going to be obvious. But right now, it's not. I mean, or if we were starting a new company, right? I would put you in the cloud and that would be it. How do we deal with this transition from people who are spending thousands of dollars a month in infrastructure, which is arguably doesn't make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, back to you as we talk about enforcing policies. Let's pick back up on your two-factor authentication talk.
Well, I mean that's the one that I
waves that.
I mean, you know, when I read the entire BYOD work from home policies, they're pretty hard to enforce. But yeah, any clients we had left who were not fully two-factored, we are making them do it right now, because I don't want to be that guy. Just like you don't want to be the MSP who's someone hacked into your RMM tool because you didn't bother to turn on two-factor. I don't want my clients getting phished and getting hacked because they didn't have two-factor turned on. And I think anyone listening right now, you know, go down your entire client list and just think, you know, when that person tells their external colleague or their insurance company that they didn't have two-factor, how's that conversation going to go for you? Right? Because the crazy thing about two-factor is it's free. It's free. Every security awareness training I ever give, I say, if you guys tune everything out that I said to you in this entire hour, go turn on two-factor, tell your mom to turn on two-factor on her Facebook account, tell your girlfriend to do it, tell your kids to do it, just go do it, right? Like, because it's free. It's like, it's just like, it boggles the mind, right? And, you know, for Office 365, there's a guy, I think his name is Van Fields or Alex Fields or something. But there's this guy, I can send a link to Jenny and Harry to share with the group later. But he has an entire pack that he made for like $100. It's like every setting to tick in the back of Office 365 in the tenant. It's client communication. Here's what to send to your end users. Here's what the admins need to do. Like, these processes are dialed and bulleted and checklisted. And it's like, you know, like, this is going to end in a year or two. Two-factor will no longer be a 99% solution. But right now, between two-factor and restricting OAuth so your users can't grant sort of back-end access, like, your tenant is safe.
Yeah.
Someone argue with me.
Well, Jenny, I'll tell you what, I'll speak on behalf of Jenny because she's too nice a person, but she would argue, and I'm being a little facetious, but she, you know, does what she does every day, all day for SMB Nation, and has expressed, and I get it, that two-factor authentication is annoying, and that's legitimate feedback. And so, Josh, how do you deal with that? I mean, the people that are doing the work of the Jesus, as we say, it's annoying, man.
Well, how about this anecdote? I have a friend in LA. He's been running an IT company, not really an MSP. He's sort of like a, you know, he's a break fix, but he's also like a DevOps guy. He does some really, really high-end work for some top-tier universities in Los Angeles. He got phished, and he works for a bunch of my clients, and my clients said, do you know that your IT colleague sent me a phishing email? So how's it going to feel when Harry B sends out a phishing email?
Yeah.
That's what I say. That's what I say. How annoying. Yeah, go ahead.
Don't forget that multi-factor authentication doesn't mean SMS. Right? Doesn't have to mean SMS, because SIM jacking is actually increasingly prevalent. Don't think that just because you got your banking app on your phone and mysteriously on the same Android system you get a text message. Don't think that that's MFA. Think about things like these. I don't know if you know like for your cards. Think about the dongles, you know, with the corresponding codes. That don't get too enamored with the SMS.
Well, at the least, you know, it doesn't, I mean, physical devices are awesome, but at the least use Authy or use Keeper or use MyKey. There's some great solutions where people can have a pretty flexible solution where they can move between devices, they can use the codes from their browsers, and it's much safer than SMS. So yeah, I agree, and I mean, not only is SMS the least secure implementation, but it's also the most annoying.
Back to my point.
Right. But Jenny, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to deal with the annoyance, man, because you don't want SMB Nation running a fish campaign.
Yeah, I hear you. That'd be humiliating. Kathy Muller, welcome back, Kathy. She is interested in that checklist, and I have a question for you, Josh. So if you could kick that over to me, and we'll get it in the thank you email. If you're speaking of the same Alex Fields, he's one of our analysts out of Minneapolis and has written has done some really good work. He's up at Success Computers in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and is an academic, and I mean that kindly. Smart guy, has written about a 200-page book on Microsoft Office 365 that's available. We're talking, yeah, Alex is a rock star.
It's IT Pro Mentor.
Now, yeah, and that's his side hustle. His side hustle is IT Pro Mentor. His paycheck is Success Computers.
But he also sells those checklists. I mean, I'm actually reading that 200-page book right now. He sells the checklist for about $100. You get access to everything he's ever written as it gets updated forever, and it's gold.
It is, and if you could just keep me honest, Josh, if you wouldn't mind, shoot Jenny and I an email just so I don't forget. I have Corona head up here in the wetware. It's been quite a 2 months. Folks, we're gonna go ahead and Paul Glosser is also interested in the checklist. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Keith. Let us move on in the spirit of time. Let me get some things off my screen so I can see my slide. I want to highlight Kathleen Martin, a community member who works for CompTIA, has built a robust COVID-19 resource center. And the reason I want to give a shout out to CompTIA, first of all, I think CompTIA, not only are they relevant as a trade association in our space, but they're responsive. They're doing good work. And when I went to find resources with our remote work theme for MSP Tech Talk Spring Quarter, there's hundreds of resources. I mean, it was unbelievable. And so it's like, well, do I send you to ConnectWise? Do I send you to Continuum? Do I send you to Avik? Where the heck do I send you? And what Kathy has done is essentially assembled a resource center of other resources. And so now you don't have to play favorites. You don't have to hunt and peck. You can go to covid19.comptia.org and give Kathleen an acknowledgement. She's done really good work with this. With that said, I do want to be mindful of time. We have a few minutes left, so this would be your chance to ask questions. And I think Jenny might have the capability to bring you on live. We are seeing some activity. Jonathan Handler wants the Alex Field checklist. Dave Sutherland, thank you. If you would like to either ask a question or make commentary, so note it in the question area and we'll see if Jenny can bring you on live. The reason I say that is everybody is now a TV studio. That's actually one of our topics when we talk about collaboration in a couple of weeks as part of our lecture series. We're going to have very specific guidance to make you a TV studio.
Does that include cutting off the top of your head because your desk is too low?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I didn't mean to go there. There we go.
My girlfriend keeps laughing at me because she said, I thought you're good at this, Josh, and you can't even get our own house set up correctly.
Yeah, you can always count on friends and family as an entrepreneur, let me tell you. So Josh, we have a complaint from Dave. Dave says you need to smile more. Josh, we have an official complaint from this.
And I try to be the smiley one.
So now Dave wants us to all end with a joke. Dave, that's a good idea. I'm going to try. I don't know if I have a joke, but I have a lot of trivia. I am so bored. How bored are you? Kids won't get that. That was Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon. I am so bored. I have cleaned out 1 mini storage, 2 to go from the SMB Nation era, the physical era. And I found, let's see if I can get that up there, but I found a card we did a number of years ago with Astro, the English Springer Spaniel mascot. So that's how bored I am. I hope that passed off as a laugh track. Gentlemen, you want to take a stab at humor?
I don't understand boredom. What is boredom? Is an entrepreneur ever bored?
I did hear a joke this morning, but maybe it's an English joke, so it won't translate. What radio station do ghosts listen to? Do you know?
No.
No, I don't know either, but it must be on medium wave.
Oh man.
Ryan?
That requires some
No,
metacognition.
I can't even transpose.
Yeah, we have negative feedback. Phil, we have negative feedback from Paul on that one. He's saying boo. So between Paul and Dave, we're getting a lot of feedback. Paul goes on to say he will not take the cover off his camera. Paul, join us in a couple of weeks when we talk about collaboration, and we have very specific guidance on home office setup from a TV studio point of view. And seriously, we have a really good speaker and checklist to make it so. Ryan, take us out with a joke if you know one. You're a fun guy. Come on, dude.
Oh God, you put me on TV here, and now I'm on the spot.
Oh man.
Harry, thank you so much for having me on the panel today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Keep it real, man. Tell Charlotte hi. Yeah, no, tell Charlotte hi. Dude, you're like the last person professionally I interacted with before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Do you realize that?
I know this happened. Was it the week, like days after you left Dallas?
We're forever married in history, sir, and I'm going to make that the final word. A little bit like Forrest Gump, right? A Forrest Gump photo. There we both are. Folks, thank you for joining us. So on Thursday, we have devices. We have a panel from the National Christina Foundation that not only can they speak towards trends and what they're seeing with devices and the hardware refresh and BYOD and all that, but they also have an appeal to all of us. That's one of the reasons I went to mini storage. They are a not-for-profit that takes used devices, refurbishes them, gets them running. They have 1,300 entities that will accept your donation. I went to mini storage. I found 6 legacy devices, 6 devices that I'm in the process of getting to them. And those devices will go out to underserved communities like the elderly, like students, and so on. So join us on Thursday. And here's the deal, Ryan, you're clapping. All of us have half a dozen devices in mini storage. All of us.
I've got a couple I can think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah. So that's on Thursday. Phelim, it's late your time. I thank you for postponing the visit to the pub. I know it's probably coming up on 9 p.m. over in the UK.
We're not allowed. We're not allowed anymore.
And Josh, keep up the good work. We work with you in a couple of different ways and a couple of different entities. So thank you, sir. And we'll see you guys on the flip side. Jenny, thank you very much. Be safe.
Everyone. Thanks, Jenny.
Bye.